Welcome back to the garage. It's transfer case day. To start with, this front casting needs to be painted. I was trying to avoid doing it, but just me and the details. I know that it probably wouldn't rust, but it would just bother me if it wasn't painted, so I'm gonna hope this primer adheres to it, and we'll just see how it goes. Now we let the paint dry, and we see if it sticks. Well, it looks like that paint is adhering all right, so technically it needs 10 days to cure, but we might just bend those rules just a little bit. In a rare move of organization, I've got the workbench out away from the wall to where I can get to both sides. Got everything laid out for the most part. I did a bunch of surface prep off camera because that's kind of boring just sitting around with a Scotch-Brite pad and a die grinder to clean these surfaces up. They've got surface rust all over them again, just from Arkansas humidity just existing. So I think it's time to start putting stuff back together. Step one, let's get this front bearing installed. Full disclosure, this was take two. Take one, this bearing would not fit, period. But last night I threw that bearing in the freezer, let it freeze for overnight. I thought today, why don't I just do the same thing with the casting? So I threw the casting in there about an hour ago, and you can see that it's all frosty because of the humidity. But that worked. So there's your pro tip, freeze it. Next up is the snap ring, which is everyone's favorite nemesis. The trick here is just to get it started up here and then use a flathead screwdriver and kind of twist it. Pry it just carefully and get it started in that groove. Ha! That took longer than I want to admit on camera. We're gonna try to get these seals on this front casting. Some kits will come with a paper gasket, some don't. Mine did. So I'm gonna throw some Permatex on it to create a bit of a gasket. Something like that. Now, with these seals on the inside, there is a spring. That spring always goes to the inside, wherever the oil is going to be. And in my case, to hit it evenly, I've got this random block of wood. Now you got to drive that home until it bottoms out. This is approximately the correct size. Let's see how far we get. And that should be good to go. While we're here, we'll get the upper seals. It'd be nice to have a proper tool for this, but what I've got is a socket of right about the correct size with a good sized shoulder on the back of it. That should give me even pressure and allow me to hammer this in nice and flat. It's one. A little bit of paint came off, but those two seated just fine. Another thing that'll need to be done is the bushing on this output shaft here. That's got way too much play in it and that'll never work. So I've got to get this bushing out of here and replace it. To get this guy out, we're going to use this old hacksaw blade. It's got a chunk missing out of it. And basically I'm going to spend a lot of time here off camera just gently sawing back and forth, cutting through this until I can pry it out. One thing you need to be aware of is how far to press down your new bushing. I ended up with 2 after ordering all this stuff over the years. I don't know which one was supposed to be which. I think it's this one. But you want to see how far down you need to press in the new one. I have this pretty close to the same size socket. It's a bit wobbly, but it goes down that far, and I've marked it with tape. So that'll give me a good idea of how far to press it. I've also got this bit on this driver, and it fits just about perfect in there, and it's just barely out. So that'll probably be what I use to press mine in, just because it's what I happen to have. That did not go according to plan by any stretch of the imagination, but at long last, it's out. I just spent a little bit of time in the freezer just to give me any help I can get. Let's see if we can drive this thing straight down. All right. Yep, that should do it. The most important thing here is to not block this oil hole. If you do, you'll totally destroy that bushing. I guess while this main shaft is still cold and I'm working on it, I might as well go ahead and put this first bearing on. Now it is a Koyo bearing. They are Japanese, and I know a lot of people are gonna have some emotions about that. Putting a piece of Japanese bearing on an American vehicle. But honestly, I'm okay with it. Japanese are known for their precision. Use this brass punch on the inner surface. Alright. That'll be ready for the next steps. Now I need to undo something from a couple videos ago and do it right. This is that new old stock shift rail that I already safety wired a little bit prematurely. It was supposed to go through the case first. I don't know that it needs it, but I'm going to throw some assembly lube on the end of it as it sits in that recess in here. Get your shift fork in that way. Started tightening up that bolt. I'm using a 12-point socket to get a good grip on it. There we go. And I'll re-safety wire that. All right, there's that wire. Now it's time for the sliding gear. Now we'll take this output gear and just set that in here as well. Now let's take our freshened up output shaft and put that through. There we go, right about there. Next up is that thrust washer, which only fits one way. There's just that one groove that it fits in. Then we've got this snap ring that'll need to go on. Once you get it on there, it's just a matter of scooting it. You should just be able to nudge right into place. Almost there. snap rings in place. Next up is our other tapered bearing. Alright, that should be seated. Now I'll go ahead and install the front race. I'll gently tap that in with this hammer. Just until that's flush with the face here, because the front casting is actually going to set the end play. From here I can go ahead and set that in there and give it a quick spin. I did go ahead and ream that front bushing off camera. Sorry, I just forgot to record, but it fits nicely into the shaft. It should be pretty good to go. Next up, I need to put this front output shaft through this bearing. That should just tap right through. All right, that is right up against the bearing. Next up will be the new old stock shift rail with the old shifter. It's still in good condition. Safety wired, ready to go. It's about that far. What I do want to do is make sure this seal doesn't turn itself inside out. So I'm going to take just a dab of assembly lube here and put that on there. And that should allow it to push through without flipping the seal. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put this little collar here on the shifter. Not my proudest moment, but I make the mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't put your seals in first, or put in the shaft straight through first before you lock this guy down with a wrench. Otherwise, when you pull this shaft out to tighten this screw back down, it's gonna pull it past the seal, and this lip right here will catch on the seal and it'll tear it up. Ask me how I know. So don't make the mistake I did. Now we need to set the position on this front race so that we can get the end play able to be properly measured. So to simulate what its final distance is going to be, I'm going to put the gasket in place. And then we'll get this front casting temporarily installed. And I'll have a couple of bolts through here just to get it started and hold it in place. I was able to give the casting a good nudge and it set the race where it needed to be, and I temporarily tightened these down, not really to spec. Two things that I'd expected would be a problem have become a problem. One, unfortunately the seal here was kind of in the way, but I was able to get it out of the way and work past it. But two, because this was a new old stock part, this front casting was covered in cosmilling, and it's in the pores and you can't really get it out of the pores. So the paint is starting to chip all over the place. Exactly like I figured it would, but well, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and press forward. Next up is the cup on the rear output. We'll just tap that into place with that same hammer. All right, that's set pretty well. It's not all the way in, but the output casting has an indentation that'll help finalize that. And then the shim pack will do the rest. We'll get to the part where accuracy matters here in a second, but I just thought it was interesting. Here's the original shim pack that was in here before, and if I put that casting on there with all new bearings and races, it's not even close. So we're gonna go with an all new shim pack because what was there is only about probably a third of what we need. This is actually two shims, I think, that just really stuck together. We're getting close to the end, so I need to get into this new old stock shim pack, relabeled in 57. Maybe now it's worth noting that just underneath this wax you can see Ford Motor Company. These are Ford parts. There we go. Paper envelope from another time. And there's our various shims. Some of them are wired together to denote their thickness. There should be 4 that are 3 thou, 2 that are 10 thou, and 2 that are 31 thou. And they are coated in Cosmoline, so I'll have to clean them. Yep, there's the F script. There's the other F script. Somehow it feels like someone out there on the internet is gonna get mad at me for using these F script new old stock parts on this transfer case. It's just neat to know that despite all of that paraffin covering it, despite the wax paper, despite the thin coating of Cosmoline, moisture still got in, and there's a little bit of surface rust on that one. This is one of those 3,000th shims. A lot of different ways to do this. A lot of people will say, take your entire shim pack, everything you got, throw it in there from the start. And a lot of people will just say, just guess on it. I put about 51 thou worth on there. I'm gonna tighten it down and see if I can spin the thing. All right, so with this tightened down, the shaft is basically not moving. I've got too little, so maybe there's something to what those guys say. You put too much on and then you remove. Otherwise, you end up doing this a whole lot. Here's more like 82 thou. Okay, so following the guidelines from the internet, basically everyone on the internet, here is the entire dang shim pack. New old stock in its entirety. Alright, with the whole dang shim pack, there's actually a little bit of end play now. So let's get set up with the dial indicator. So after some trial and error, removed one of the shims. Let's see where we're at. 12. So I need to remove about half of that. Subtracted the 10, but added 3 back. Let's see where we're at. If the magnetic base will cooperate. We zero it. 4.5 thou. 4 thou. A lot of this might be the tool itself, but that, it's right within the spec. If the spec is between 4 and 8 thou and you want to aim for 6, but all of this, no matter where I'm measuring it from, there was a 7 in there, but as consistently inaccurate as this is, it looks to be pretty close. But every time it's within spec at least. So with these actually already torqued down, that's probably about as close as I'm going to get with the tools I have. So let's move on to the next step. Now we'll go ahead and get the intermediate shaft in. I've got some new thrust washers and some caged needle bearings. I'm going to use the green assembly lube because it's got a bit of a firmer tack to it and it'll actually stick stuff in place, because these have to technically kind of hang upside down. There we go. Stick in place pretty well. And we'll load up these cage needle bearings with some of the lower tack stuff. Also get a bit on the inside of the new intermediate gear. And now, trying to make sure the thrust washers don't go anywhere, we'll drop in the new intermediate shaft with the needle bearings in them. Don't forget those. I did in the last take, and there were several four-letter words. It looks to be behaving for once. Now we're gonna drive this shaft through. I'm gonna have to nudge it. There we go. Now I've got this little locking tab and a bolt. And that should do it. And just to give it a quick spin. Next up, we're actually moving backwards so it'll seam. I'm going to take this front casting back off, and I'm going to need to seal up the gasket, get the pill in to get that interlock working, then I'll put it back on and torque it to final spec. I also have to get the poppet balls and springs in. Then, next up, I'll need to pull the rear casting off, seal up these shims, probably with a copper gasket spray. Then yokes on, oil pan on, shift levers on. And I think that's rebuilt. With the front casting off, we'll go ahead and drop in the interlock pin. Right where it needs to go. Got my gasket coated and a gasket sealer. I'm gonna throw some assembly lube down in this bushing. Just don't want a dry start. To save my seal here, I made a little custom tool out of an aluminum can. Gets it just past without destroying. With the front casting back on, do remember that these go into the case, so they need some sort of thread sealer on them. Might be redundant, but I did put a new copper crush washer on there as well. Give me a click, Vasily. One click only, please. There we go. With the rear casting back off, I'm going to give these shims a quick spray with this copper spray gasket stuff, just to give them a seal between the layers, just to make sure there's no seepage if possible. And then we'll get the e-brake back on. Nice of the USPS to give me a continuous supply of junk paper that would otherwise get recycled. Let me not forget the speedometer gear. Now that the shim pack is coated, we can go ahead and get this casting right back on. Now, we have an emergency brake on this unit. So now we actually need to install this backing plate. Jumped ahead just a little bit and I've got the backing plate on, but actually I think this is where I'm gonna stop it for now, because there's a couple of things that I'm not really liking, and this is actually a good thing. Over the course of this project, I've gotten a little bit smarter. I'd read on the internet, you know, you can just throw it on there and it'll figure itself out, it'll work, but there's some things that I'm just not actually comfortable with. So I started looking at this drum, which I figured it was fine, it'll work. But now that I really feel it, there's a huge dip in the middle the entire way around. And I thought I could get away with not getting this turned, namely because I'm having a real difficult time finding anyone in the Central Arkansas area that will still turn drums. Everyone will turn a rotor, but no one will turn a drum. So I don't really like how that is. But then additionally, I might have gotten a little bit sidetracked a few months ago, and I forgot to clean up the yokes. And this one that bolts up to the brake drum actually has some pretty gnarly scale rust on it. So I've got it soaking in some really old Evapco rust to do some cleaning and degreasing. And I'm gonna see if I can save that, because I'm looking at it and I don't know that I can. So there's gonna be a part 2. I didn't expect that, but it would be the right thing to do, and I want to do things on this project right. And actually, while we're on the subject of doing it right, I messed up. I did not look at the shift fork itself. I knew the shift rails were just done and they needed to be replaced, but I did not look closely enough at this shift fork. It's got just a little bit of play in it, and if you push that all the way back, these don't mesh straight. And I don't know if that would straighten itself out if I actually had the poppet ball and spring in, but regardless, there's like an 18 thou gap between the shift fork and the gear. So I think I'm going to replace that shift fork, better late than never. And that's going to require undoing a lot of this. I'll have to really think through that, but that's going to be it for this one. I've got a few to-do things, but we're going to get this thing wrapped up. It's been sitting on the workbench for 6 months. It's time to get it all back together. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.